The Jolly Farmers in Oxford is one of the city's oldest LGBTQ+ venues. It's also the domain of one of my oldest friends, Spike Green. We sat where we spent many hours in the past, but this time with cameras, and spent an afternoon talking about his life, finding his place in the city, and why this pub means so much, not only to him, but to the whole community it represents. Spike Green, hello. Spike he's an author, he's an illustrator, he's an artist. He's in charge of this amazing pub, the Jolly Farmers. He's also an agitator, a complete pain in the arse, a long-term anarchist, and I'm very, 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 very proud to say one of my best friends, and I love him more than chocolate. Dark chocolate, indeed. Thank you for agreeing to sit here. I've been a bit scared.
No worries. I've never met this woman before in my life.
That's why I've been a bit scared, in case you said that. I've been a bit scared because I think it must be easier to sit and talk to someone that you don't know than someone you do. And I speak to so many people at bus stops. It's become a little bit of a habit. I want to sit and have a chat with you today about Oxford, because we've known each other how long?
25 years now.
God, we were young. Well, you were. Do you want to do a little 2-minute background? Just a 2-minute?
Yeah, 26 years ago, I got a backpack on, moved from Birmingham. I was living in a squat, being me, being odd, and was too frightened to move to London because it was too big. And I'd seen Oxford on the television and it looked rather beautiful. So got to Oxford and it was rather beautiful. And I had the same presumptions as everybody else that it was this toffee-nosed, strange place full of a university. And got here and Oxford threw its arms around me and took me in. Oxford does that. I think if you're willing to allow Oxford to be itself, it's a peculiar, magical, wondrous city. It is everything everybody thinks it is on the television. It is Brideshead Revisited. It is Inspector Morse. It is Philip Pullman. But it's also the Cowley Road and the BMW plant and this enormous melting pot. It's a tiny little market town that happens to have 52 castles in the middle of it because of the university. It's a magical place for me. I mean, I spend very little time in reality, so I might be slightly biased, but it is a wonderful place. And I ended up here, walked through the door in this very pub and asked for a job, and slowly ended up barman, manager, and then went away, worked with you and worked in publishing for a while. And then got a phone call asking if we wanted to buy the pub because it was up for grabs 5 years ago, and came back, rebuilt the insides, restructured it, reinvented it, and enjoy every second, even the crazy, terrible bits. But yeah, it's. We like to think this is a bit of a microcosm of Oxford.
Do you believe in manifestation?
I didn't. And then I spent so long sitting in the back garden with my friends saying, this is what the farmers needs, this is what the Jolly Farmers needs. And then we were here and made it happen. So my basic answer is no, I don't, because I don't believe in anything non-empirical.
I don't believe you.
But somebody wove a chaos magic spell and it worked.
Yeah, it certainly has. But looking at what you've brought here, I mean, when you were in Wolverhampton, going up and down the lift with Noddy Holder in it,
yes.
I like that idea. Did you think at that time ever that all these bits of your life, the creative side, the sociable side, the gay side, could all be put together in this sort of melting pot of... I mean, you've got everyone's ideal, haven't you, really?
Yes, I think so. I'm incredibly fortunate. I for your question, I didn't think I'd be alive at 25, 30 with the kind of life I was living. So I didn't even consider that it could all go together. I was also one of those terrible, terrible people that sat there and wondered why the world didn't come to me and give me exactly what I wanted. And I don't think that comes with age. I don't think it's a youth thing. I just think I wasn't a very nice person. And my solipsism was extreme. And it took quite a while to crack that and go, oh, no, I'm not the most important person in the world. I'm not even the most important person in my life. So, but yeah, it did all come together. And I have been incredibly fortunate that with this venue, with this pub, it's a great space. And I'm at a point now where I always use the line that I say I'm an illustrator. But I'm an illustrator the same way that actors say, I'm an actor, but they work in a supermarket. So I'm an illustrator, but I run a pub. But what the pub does is give me an income and, more importantly, an enormous amount of time. I'm time rich, which is the greatest thing a creative can ever ask for.
We've sat for hours and hours and hours over the years talking about books and art and music, and you only have to look around here and it's filled. This whole place is imprinted with your personality, with you. Can you remember reading your first book and thinking, this has taken me somewhere else, or this has sort of reframed me?
Yes, it was Mr. Happy. But yeah, I remember thinking, and realising slowly that the magic of books, and the one that really hit me was The Wind in the Willows, where you read, and I must have been about 8 or 9, but I twigged that I cared about what was happening to Mole and cared about what was happening to Ratty. I didn't care about Badger. I hate Badger, but Toad's just awful. But I cared about them, but I was also aware that it was words on a page. It's like, how does that work? How does that happen in your head?
Spike and music is massive, isn't it? The musical influences in your life. Can we talk about the Levellers?
Yes, certainly. I'm not a muso by any means. My music is lyric based very much. I came via listening to the Beatles in the car with Dad on the way to Asda on a Saturday morning. And then found, when I was about 18, this band that had just started down in Brighton called the Levellers, who are the biggest band in the world that nobody's ever heard of. And they're still going. And they're an extreme left-wing punk folk band who are my Bible. When you listen to lyrics of songs and you go, they're singing about me. How do they know who I am? But I'm middle-aged now, so Elbow are now singing about me rather than the Levellers. But I adore the Levellers.
Politics, community, standing up for the person that is not as arsey as you has been quite fundamental in your life, hasn't it?
It has. I mean, I'm like the Jack Russell, the cliche of the little red from...
I'm allergic to Jack Russells.
That explains a lot there. I'm the little shouty one. But learned that if there's enough of you that are little and shouty, the big nasty ones back off. And that's always been the case. I make no secret of my politics and that I'm a red. And I saw the other day a wonderful description of English socialism, which is, I have no problem with anybody being rich as long as there isn't anybody that's poor. And I really like that. I thought that works. There's a base level of humanity and a base level of living in a country as wealthy as we are, at the level we are.
How does that fit with Oxford? How does that fit with the, sign outside the door that says, leave your sense of entitlement outside? How does that fit? Because surely there must be a degree of students that come in here that are very wealthy. I'm sure there's some that aren't or have very wealthy parents. And with it, that
I think Oxford's big secret is that it's a red town. It doesn't have any Conservative or the R word councillors. It won't have them. It's an industrial town. It's just got this mask of a university, and all the university it's an intellectual powerhouse. And for my mind, and I'm very biased, but for my mind, the right doesn't want you to think, and neither does the very extreme left. But the right doesn't want you to think, whereas Oxford is constantly questioning, constantly asking questions of everything, and that's how you move forward. But what we find here with the students who come in here, you're absolutely right. Some of them have got, black MX cards. They could buy the...
Is there one of them?
They could buy the place that we're sitting in. They're as neurotic as everybody else, if not more so. The pressure that they're under is astonishing. And the pressure that the working class students who have got to Oxford to achieve and to do, we some of the people who work for us work so hard. They're doing degrees, they're getting firsts and holding down a bar job, which is insane. You shouldn't have to be doing that if you're going to make the world a better place with a first from Oxford.
You said earlier about Oxford being a melting pot. This pub is a melting pot. I can remember being stood here and there was someone in priest robes stood there and someone else dressed as a chicken at the bar. And it was
we do get the chicken in every
Yeah, but that whole mix of individuals, that whole mix of personalities, of demographics, of wealth, of age, all together in this pub. And I don't know if it's quite the same now, maybe not, but certainly in a few...
No, it is, definitely.
Certainly a few years ago when I first came into the pub.
That was many years ago.
It was many years ago. Pop it out my crinoline, used to get caught in the toilet. But that, I used to come out and think, I've just been speaking to the director of X or the, CEO of Y, whilst we're all waiting to get on the bar and dance.
I have a line that I use and I overuse, and the crew here roll their eyes because I say it all the time, but it's true, which is Oxford's a melting pot and this pub is a crucible inside the melting pot because the LGBT community come from everywhere and the people who support and enjoy a safe, gentle pub come in. So we do have bishops talking to road sweepers, talking to poets who are road sweepers, talking to postmen who are talking to professors, who are talking to everybody. And it's a big mix of people. And you do get cliques, but everybody's in the clique. You don't get to put that flag outside this building and not be supportive of difference, of variety of people and making people safe. This is the embassy. That's what the flag says. It's an embassy where everybody can walk through that door, but it's our soil. So you have to follow our rules, which is tolerance and beyond tolerance, absolute acceptance. So you do get so many different people in here as a microcosm of the city. It reminds me of a William Burroughs space where everybody is in, one of his weird Moroccan melting pot places in his books, where because someone who works at BMW or me doesn't get to go into Christchurch High Table, but the people who are at Christchurch High Table come in here and sit next to and talk to, and it's a lot healthier.
Of course.
Incredibly healthy.
But also you get straight families in here, don't you? You get
very much so.
Everyone coming in for a good pint and have a look at the drawings on the wall. Yeah,
the demographic is really peculiar in this pub. It really is. It's like a Mos Eisley canteen bar from Starbucks. It really is. Everybody's in.
Do you have a dinner lady outfit? I'd love that.
And it is just a great space to be. And the one thing we do is we we police it quite carefully to make it safe.
Yeah.
We demand tolerance of everybody except us.
Yeah.
We're very intolerant of intolerance.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is the
Certain
paradox.
behaviours just aren't welcomed, are they? Simple as that.
But there's the complication in the LGBTQ community where members of the community hold inappropriate,
of course,
opinions, and so you have to police that to a point.
Because it's a bit naive, and I always thought that when you come into a community space like this, that everyone holds the same opinions and we're all happy, clappy, and lovely, and that's not reality, is it? It's not human nature.
Not at all, and that's also healthy to debate that and talk that. But I think Oxford itself is very open and allows for debate. It's a debating city, not just the university, not just the Oxford Union. The whole city is immersed in, well, that's your opinion, so let's talk about it. We're less likely to have a riot, except for the Botley Bridge situation, which I think is heading towards a riot. But we're less likely to have a riot than a massive debate in Oxford, because it's just that kind of space.
So what's your secret? If somebody said to you, right, okay, I'm coming to Oxford, I know the Redcliffe Camera, I know where the Ashmolean is, would you have a little secret place to say, but you don't know where this is? Is this somewhere that you go that always brings you joy? Or is it a secret that you can't tell because that might be a secret?
I tell you what is an amazing thing that a lot of people don't realise is there, is the Bodleian do exhibits in the new Bodleian all the time, and they're free.
It's like the Western Library. In the
Western Library. And you go in and they're free. And the one at the moment is just gobsmacking. It's called Treasures of the Bodleian. And they've, sitting there is the oldest known copy of Canterbury Tales next to the manuscript, the handwritten manuscript of Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. And just sitting there, and the oldest known cuneiform piece of Gilgamesh, the oldest story known in the English language, are all there. And you can just have a wander in, and then
so you can't take your library card and take them over.
You can't borrow them. No. You can try. And they had a month or so ago. They had 6 different versions of the Magna Carta. So you just wander in and have a look, and you wander out going, this is my hometown. This is the town that's adopted me and allowed me to be here, allowing me to do this.
I feel like that all the time. I'm always a tourist. Always a tourist.
I think we also have to understand that it is a bubble. It is a magical place, but not luck, but the good fortune is astonishing. Our ability to do that and have this takes a lot of effort and an enormous amount of watchfulness to make sure that the bad guys don't creep in.
I like that idea. We don't want them in.
We don't want them anywhere.
No,
I think that's the thing. That's the danger with Oxford, that we'd be fine. If what's happening in the US at the moment was happening over here, I honestly believe Oxford wouldn't notice because we wouldn't let it. But that's not good enough.
No, it's not. No,
we can't hide. We can't hide.
No, it's not.
It's not.
We've all got a responsibility, and I think that is another way that you see that Oxford carries the mantle in a way
very
that
much so.
Things go on politically, and maybe it's a lot of it is university led, and I
think it's youth led.
Yes, yeah.
I think it's youth led.
Don't say that. so depressing.
They can lead. I mean, we've made such a hash of it. Somebody else.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And tell me how Oxford's influenced your writing and your illustrations and the creative side of it.
I think it's permeated everything. I got to Oxford with my head full of all sorts of fantasy literature, Arthur Rackham illustrations, Chris Riddell illustrations, and Philip Pullman books. And then you come to Oxford and meet Philip Pullman, which is just insane, and such a thoroughly wonderful human being. And I realised that everything that I thought about from my influences of Monty Python and Terry Gilliam and all of the fantasy stuff that I adored and the Jim Henson stuff is in Oxford. Like, you would not be amazed if an elf walked around the corner or Lyra walked around the corner. You'd be like, oh, okay. You can see where the seeds of Alice in Wonderland. You think, oh, what an incredible imagination. How did he come up with all of this? And then you live in Oxford for a few years and go, oh, yeah.
I'm actually living in this.
Yeah, this is perfectly normal.
This is without the absinthe.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, without the absinthe. Or with the absinthe, if you ask nicely.
I was asking, not seems to be materialising.
But, and you get all of that stuff. Like a lot of Terry Pratchett, you think he spent a lot of time in Oxford because he's from just down the road.
Yeah.
Wickham. And Pratchett, like the Unseen University, is Oxford University.
But that's another lead on to this pub, isn't it? Because I find it really, really random that your heroes, the Levellers, have played in your garden.
Yeah.
Along with Seth Lakeman. Ian McKellen's had a drink over here, or was it here?
Ian McKellen was sat just over there with Kate Bush. It was possibly the most surreal moment of my life.
But that randomness of people just walking in the door and then suddenly playing in your garden on a stage not much bigger than this sofa in itself is just an epitome of this place, isn't it? And you.
Yeah. I think the place just allows we've tried to cultivate a controlled madhouse and a controlled, enjoyable, gentle environment. And it was a big like sort of gamble. Like, can you have an LGBTQ venue that is an old pub? Not just the structure, but the essence and the feel. And it turns out, yes, you can.
So if you were to sum up you and Oxford and the relationship that you've got with it, and you were to think about the thing, or the one thing, let's say one memory of Oxford, if someone were to tap into that, what would be the one thing that would always be stuck in your mind that makes you smile every time you think about it?
I think one of the first times, if not the first time, I walked into this pub knowing no one, knowing nothing, thinking I was the cleverest man in the world. Oxford.
That's not strange then, is it?
Oxford disabuses you of that very quickly because there's 1,000 people far cleverer and far more intelligent. And of course, cleverness and intelligence are two different things. But yeah, walking in and not knowing anyone, and the bar person asking me, what would you like to drink? And then saying, what star sign are you? My heart sank because, as you know, I think it's all bullshit. But that's not what they were doing. They were engaging me in a conversation. They were pulling me into a conversation. And there were 4 or 5 people sat around the bar here when the bar was where it used to be and you could sit around the bar. And of those 4 or 5 people, 3 are still my friends. 25 years later, they turned around and went, hello.
What star sign are they?
I don't know. Pyrex. They were all test tube babies. And they're still my friends. And that's Oxford. Yeah. That's Oxford.
So on the other side of it then, what's the bad thing? What's the thing about Oxford that you think, I wish it wasn't like that? Or, I don't like that?
I think the sheer levels of poverty here that are just sickening, utterly sickening, that we have very worthy people sitting, having dinner in halls with portraits on the wall that if you sold one of those portraits, they'd feed the kids in Oxford who haven't had breakfast this week for a year. That's the socialism in me. No problem with wealth, no problem with rich, as long as there isn't any poor. And Oxford pretends it's fine, and it isn't. And it isn't. And the not doing enough for those people. We live in St Ebbs here, which is our ancient parish of St Ebbs and St Thomas next door. And there's poverty. There's poverty here now. And we've got giant hotels that generate enormous amount of wealth, but don't put a great deal back into the community. And I think we've got to do something about that. We've got to start to structure that there should be a pride in doing that. There should be a pride in putting something back in. There seems to, I'm going to sound like a grouchy old man on a park bench now, but there's a loss of that. Or perhaps it never happened and I'm just misremembering, but of actually big corporations, big organisations and tiny places like this doing something. The council could come and say to us, you make a good living here. Can you pay for some benches outside? Why shouldn't you do that? And of course, you can't ask people. You have to make them do it. You can't ask a corporation. You've got to make them do it. Oxford is a bit like a mini London. Indeed. One of the worst things of it is it sucks all the resources and all the glory and all the hope from all the surrounding areas.
It does indeed.
And you get chocolate box villages and towns and beautiful little places around, but it absorbs everything. And it does. And we forget that.
We forget the shires, don't we?
Totally. Yeah. We put a wall around us and we'll be fine. Come the zombie apocalypse, Oxford will lock itself off and go, well, we'll just carry on.
Well, you will be fine because you've been sat here or not you personally, although you're looking a bit rough. You've been sat here since
1592.
1592.
Yeah.
That's a long time. And am I right in saying that this building has been a gay pub since 1982?
It has.
And is that
since before? It's been an LGBTQ owned pub since then, but prior to that, it became owned by a gay man because it was a gay based pub. So it's been much longer than that, but the official date is 82 because that's when it became gay owned.
Get it. And that is, I believe, one of the longest running gay owned.
Yeah,
is that the right phrase?
Yeah, one of the longest four oldest and now 2 extant, so 2 still functioning in the country. Yeah, or 3. This could be nonsense, but I think it's the Queen's Head in Brighton, the Vauxhall Tavern,
of course,
the great and glorious Vauxhall Tavern, and us. And and I think Oxford, because of the nature of Oxford and it's the way Oxford is, that's kept us healthy and afloat. And we like to think we help Oxford. Oxford Pride is now the biggest cultural event in Oxford. But that's only because the council can't be bothered to sort Cowley Carnival out, which they really need to sort out, because that's the big one.
That in itself is bizarre, isn't it? Because, I have memories.
Yeah.
I have memories of...
Traumatic
memories. But I have memories of driving around charity shops in Oxford with a budget of £2 looking for old handbags to do handbag throwing on the street outside.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. We set up the terrible village fate worse than death, which was Oxford Pride, which was like an episode of Father Ted.
It wasn't that good.
It was. it was a wonderful thing, but it kicked off and a spark was lit, and it carried on and grew, and then what really set it ablaze was Maz Image came and got involved and browbeat and bullied everybody quite rightly into doing the parade, into the march, which we hadn't done. And she was absolutely right. And that just went boom. And that march now is a glory through the streets of Oxford.
Makes me cry every time.
And just through one of the most beautiful cities in the world.
Yeah, it makes me cry. So tell me then, if you were someone to say to you, what want bloody pride for? They don't need pride. They don't want pride. Look at them wandering around. They can do what they want, say what they want, go where they want. How would you answer?
That's why we need pride. Because there are kids sitting in bedrooms all across the land who think they're on their own, who are at their wits' end because people on television, very powerful people, people with a mouthpiece, are saying they are not a human being. They are not who they think they are, that they're scum, that they're nobody. And pride says you are somebody, and you can be whomever you wish to be. And we will fight, us idiots that have crawled out the trenches and survived with all the shrapnel through the 80s and the 90s, and our older sisters and brothers and non-binary and trans who've been around a lot longer than us and fought a lot harder than we fought, are still there to back you up. And that kid needs to look at the television and go, oh, there's someone like me out there and they're happy. Or there's someone out there and they're angry and they're doing something about it. And that's vital, because they do matter, you know. And not just the kids. There are people in their 60s, 70s, 80s who feel lost, who may only have just realised that they're part of the LGBTQ community. And they are part. As soon as you decide you're a part, you're a part. That's how it works. That's how membership works. And they are a part of it. And it's our job to stand up to the pointless, pathetic human beings who feel that they can only define themselves by hating somebody else. I don't care about them. They're irrelevant to me. They can go away. And if I make their day a little bit more annoying just by existing, I'm more than happy with that.
You do know I love you. Have we done? I don't know what to say now. I've got a bit emotional.